Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Pete, HD Werks. Behind me we have this really nice 06 Mitsubishi Evolution wagon straight from Japan. We're gonna do a full walk around and a drive, and you're watching HD Werks. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe link below. Let's start off by taking a look at this car today. We started the restoration of this car maybe about 2 years ago. We just finished it up now with a little bit of tuning and some small suspension bits. But it really started when my client brought it to me for kind of a refresh. We wanted to go over the entire car and really kind of get it as perfect as possible. So we started off with a lot of paint work on the car, you know, the normal rock chips taken care of. So we actually did the whole front clip of the car. Carbon fiber was a little trashed. The Ralliart lip on the bottom of the car was a little thrashed up, so we got that all back together and looking nice. Headlights, the rad support, all of that stuff kind of had to be fixed to look really, really good. And luckily for us, the rest of the car, like the other 2/3 of it, was actually really, really nice. So we went over the whole thing, replaced a lot of suspension parts, refreshed the brake calipers, brake work, brake service, and then we kind of moved into the engine bay, finished up a lot of stuff in there, which I'll show you in a little bit. My client has a pretty good taste in wheels and kind of putting them together, so him and I worked very well together on the bigger picture. He found me these RE30s, which look like exquisite on this car. I don't think there's almost a better wheel that we could do, especially with the color combo. This is like a really, really deep metallic blue, and these are like almost like a Nardo gray. When we redid the calipers, we made sure that it was a really nice deep red that matched all the lug nuts that we did on it. I guess moving down the side of the car, all of the carbon fiber on the car, this is actually an aftermarket piece, which is not Ralliart. This is actually an authentic Ralliart lip on this car, as well as the vent there, that's a Ralliart piece. But we wanted to keep it as authentic as possible. So any of the electronics that were inside the car, in there when it came over, is still in the car and still operational, because we kind of wanted to have it a little bit of a time capsule when you got in and things like, oh wow, this is really exactly what it was. We did Fortunato coilovers on the car, super nice. Coming around to the back, I want to show you the back end of this car. So this is the wagon part of it, obviously, which is really, really cool to see in person. You kind of only ever see them in books or magazines or on the internet, or magazines anymore don't really exist, but maybe back for me in my time. But super clean interior, almost pristine. We found an actual factory strut bar. We'd actually just put that in a couple weeks ago. This thing actually closes so you can protect your groceries or whatever you want to put back there, which is really, really neat. The interior of this car is basically an Evo 9. Suede inserts, really, really comfortable, and they look really, really good. It's probably my favorite interior. The rear of the car is like a JDM bumper for the 8.9s, but it has the diffuser on the bottom of the car, bolts to that, just like it would on an 8.9. Tomei exhaust, it's basically full Tomei all the way up to the front of the car, and then RK did a full downpipe out of the O2 housing all the way to the underneath of the car, and I basically did the marriage of the rear Tomei to his front portion with a little bit of titanium. So the whole thing's titanium, sounds really, really good, and it kind of completes the authentic portion of this car. This car is really, really, really clean. Absolutely no rust on it. Nobody's rolled the fenders. Nobody's molested it. Nobody's done any kind of weird wheels on the car. Nobody's ever raced it. It's extremely clean. So when I look at Evos, I always look for, this is a telltale sign right in here, is if anything's ever been modified on the car. You usually, especially if the quarter panel's been painted, usually there's a small line here that's right above the wheel in this area. You usually lose that line because a lot of body shops wouldn't be able to replicate that because it's so subtle. But this car is absolutely pristine. The quarter panel is pristine. And then if you look at the paint, it is just laser straight all the way up the car. No rust, no corrosion, no nothing. It is an absolutely incredible example of an Evo 9 wagon. Absolutely incredible. Let me show you under the hood. This is a jewel for sure when you look inside this engine bay. Extremely similar to the US spec stuff. but your master cylinder is basically flopped, just like a normal right-hand drive car would be. So your ABS module's over here, your boosters over here, everything's swapped, but everything else is almost identical to a US Evo 89. All the parts fit the same, batteries in the same place, fuse box, AC components, all those things are exactly the same. When we got the car, we were lucky enough that it had pistons and rods already in the car, so it had a nice forged bottom end. Everything else is basically stock though. We just wanted to upgrade a few little things, really wanted to keep a lot of the authentic parts in the car and kind of build off of that. So we have a carbing strut brace in titanium, a little burnt action on it. RK tie did some titanium bits for us, some shields in the front, on the side, and for the cam sensor. Archer did a turbo manifold for us, and that's bolted to a HKS ball bearing turbo. There's some forged bits in here that kind of complement the sheen of the titanium. Mishimoto did a radiator for us, and all of the aluminum things kind of match and play well together. But other than that, it's very, very simple. Car's an GTA, which is an automatic, so we can't throw a ton of power at it, so we have to kind of keep it at that 400 level, but it works really, really good, spools really, really good, and looks amazing when you open the engine bay. It's just absolutely stunning. So let's go for a ride. Really cool car, very much a cruiser, this particular car. So it's an Evo GTA, which is GT, and then the A I would assume means automatic, or some sort of touring car. Very comfortable, very spacious, AC works great. Super comfortable car to just cruise around in. Definitely not one to make a lot of power in, only because the transmission can only take so much. But it's perfect for that though, just to kind of cruise around, get some looks, put your groceries in the back, cover them up with the cool cover, and go about your business. There's always a lot of caveats with these cars. This particular platform though doesn't really have anything different other than the steering wheel's on the right hand side. So finding parts is very easy. Finding replacement stuff and maintenance items, that's all the same for the US stuff, which is good, except for the very small things on the body that we might not have here. So luckily this car was in great shape. Didn't have to do much to the body or find any weird parts. So we lucked out on that one, just cleaned it up, got the tune right. Chris Carbee from Slowpoke got the ECU calibrated properly just a few weeks ago. Show you some of the power numbers it made. It made like 411 torque and 400 horsepower or something like that. Very, very similar numbers. So it doesn't rip your head off, but it's definitely enough to boogie on its own. The interior of this car is super, super clean. Any kind of boots, trims, anything like that's in super great condition. Headliner's pretty much perfect. The gauge cluster is a Ralliart original cluster, but for the GTA. The RPM gauge will go up to 10,000. So this one's always cool to have, and especially cool in this particular car because it's a GTA and a Ralliart. Usually you'll see them in white face just for the manual cars. This is a GTA version of that, which is really, really neat to see. So just driving this around is almost nerve-wracking. So when they do go out, you got to be really cautious and really cognizant of the people around you. That's how I drive these cars anyway, because I mean, once it's not perfect anymore, I mean, you can fix them, but they're not, in my opinion anyway, they're not the way they were. You know, you have damage on them, they're repaired. I don't want a repaired car. You know, I would, if this were mine and somebody, God forbid, hits it at some point, I would want to start over. I would want to find another car that's perfect, because I don't want something that we repaired. I want something that's original and authentic, not something that we had to put back together because we had to put it back together. You know, it's worth something to somebody at that point, but in the way that I see them, I don't want them. I wouldn't want the car anymore. Maybe I'm a nut job, but I would want to move on at that point and try something else for sure. Keep them safe if you're driving them. Your right-hand drive cars, I don't care what it is, the Evo stuff, your GTR stuff, any weird right-hand drive car. If it gets hit, that's it. There's no replacement parts for these things unless you can find them. You find the parts from somebody privately. You can't. 99.9% of the time, go to the dealer and buy them. You can't get a rear bumper for this car. You can't get a lot of stuff. All the trims, all the little doodads that make this the wagon, you can't get them. They don't exist. But that being said, all of these cars, you know, anything right-hand drive, anything NSX, anything late 80s, early 90s, into the 2000s, any of that stuff, and I've always said this is your new classic car. So anything prior to this, like your Chevelles and your Novas and all the classic cars that you might have in your mind as a you know, that type of car, this is the new generation of that. So I mean, a lot of these cars are approaching 30 years old now. So just like they were the classics, these are our classics now. You know, when I was growing up, I grew up with these cars, and just like their generation grew up with the Chevelles and the Novas and all those cool cars too, which have a place for sure in car history, these now are absolutely carving a path for this type of restoration to happen. And I think that's what we do a lot of too, is we're almost we curate to that type of restoration service, because nobody does that, and nobody really acknowledges the fact that these cars need restoration. You know, they're not like slap some parts on it, buff a little paint out. I mean, they really need to be taken apart and restored, and that requires a lot of thought and a lot of time, hundreds and hundreds of hours. And just like you can't get a lot of the stuff for the older classic cars, you can't get a lot of stuff for these too. And you'll see a lot of companies start coming out with reproductions of parts. Like new old stock will start kind of appearing because people, you know, get their hands on like a pallet of quarter panels or a pallet of, you know, blinker lights or whatever it is. You'll see those parts start popping up because they do exist, but they're just in somebody's warehouse. But these are the new classics. There's no doubt about it. And so what we do is more of a more geared to restoration than really anything in preservation of this stuff, because you can't replicate these things anymore. So we have to either remake what we got or attempt to fix it or restore what's available now, just like all the guys, you know, that are building these classic cars had to do. If they didn't have something, they had to make it because it didn't exist. So I think just the eras are shifted now. You know, our era is the new classics. So, well, guys, this is it. We appreciate you sticking around to the end. We make these videos for you guys. I want to show you the ins and outs of all these cars. We have lots more in the pipeline, lots of Nissan stuff, lots of Evo stuff, a lot of cool things happening, a lot of right-hand drive stuff happening in the background. Stay tuned, please subscribe, and we'll see you at the next episode. See you later.